Hello, dear friends. Welcome to an epic clash of minds that shook the medieval world and still echoes today. Picture this: two intellectual titans, Al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd, squaring off in a battle of ideas that pits faith against reason. On one side, Al-Ghazali, the mystic defender of spiritual truth, arguing that faith is the ultimate guide. On the other, Ibn Rushd, the razor-sharp philosopher, championing logic and reason as the path to knowledge. Who won, and why doth this showdown still matter? Buckle up, because we're diving into a mind-blowing journey through philosophy, theology, and the quest for truth. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get started. This video is the result of weeks of intense research and countless sleepless nights, poring over texts to bring you this story. I'm using a text-to-speech tool for this voiceover because my environment isn't ideal for recording. But I've crafted this voice to bring the passion this topic deserves. Stick around, because at the end of this video, I'll reveal myself to share a personal moment with you all. Plus, I've included every single reference in the description below, so you can dive into the sources and verify everything yourself. It is the incredible story of Al-Ghazali, a Persian scholar from the 11th century whose ideas shook the foundations of philosophy and faith. Ever heard of Descartes' famous line, "I think, therefore I am"? Well, what if I told you Al-Ghazali was wrestling with similar ideas 500 years earlier? Let's jump in. Born in 1058 in Tus, Persia, Al-Ghazali grew up in a poor but deeply religious family. From a young age, this guy was curious, constantly asking questions, driving his teachers nuts. There's even a story where bandits robbed him of his study notes. When he begged to keep them, the bandit leader laughed and said, "What good is knowledge if it's so easily taken?" That hit hard. From then on, Al-Ghazali memorized everything he studied, making sure no one could steal his wisdom. Al-Ghazali's brilliance took him to the prestigious Nizamiya Institute in Nishapur, where he outshined his teachers. They called his knowledge a sea you could drown in. He went on to teach in Baghdad under the Sultan's patronage, becoming a rock star of the medieval intellectual world. His works tackled big ideas. Think early versions of the trolley problem, or theories about infinity. But what made him stand out was his refusal to blindly follow tradition. At the time, Neoplatonist philosophers like Ibn Sina and al-Farabi were the big names, blending Greek ideas with Islamic thought. But Al-Ghazali wasn't impressed. He saw people, religious or philosophical, swallowing beliefs just because of their environment or upbringing. In his groundbreaking book, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, he took aim at three big Neoplatonist claims. First, the idea that the universe is eternal, existing forever alongside God. Al-Ghazali said, "Nope, God created the universe through an eternal decree, independent of time." He called out the philosophers' logic as shaky, pointing out their own contradictions, like why the universe has specific properties if God's choices are supposedly arbitrary. Next, he tackled their claim that God only knows general concepts, not specific people or events. Al-Ghazali argued God can know particulars without losing his divine essence. And finally, he defended the Islamic belief in bodily resurrection, saying philosophers had no proof to dismiss it as mere allegory. Al-Ghazali, while not opposed to reason entirely, prioritized revelation in matters of faith. He introduced Aristotelian demonstration, Burhan, to Islamic theology, acknowledging that valid rational arguments are reliable and cannot conflict with revelation, as both are true. However, when reason appeared to contradict the literal meaning of religious texts, he advocated for symbolic interpretation, ta'wil, such as interpreting God's hand or throne. In the Quran, metaphorically. In Tahafut al-Falasifa, 1095 CE, Al-Ghazali critiqued philosophers like Avicenna and al-Farabi, identifying 20 points where their reliance on reason led to conclusions he deemed incompatible with Islam. These included the eternity of the world, which contradicted the Islamic belief in creation; the denial of miracles, essential to prophecy in Islamic theology; the claim that God's knowledge is limited to universals, undermining divine omniscience. Al-Ghazali's work was rooted in the Ash'ari school, which emphasized divine omnipotence and the limitations of human reason. He argued that philosophy could lead people astray if it challenged revealed truths, and his critique aimed to protect Islamic orthodoxy from what he saw as dangerous rationalism. Here's where things get wild. Despite his fame, Al-Ghazali hit a breaking point, an intellectual and spiritual crisis. He left his prestigious posts, gave money to his family, and became a simple meditator in Jerusalem's mosques. He started questioning everything, even his senses and logic itself, wondering if there was a higher truth beyond both. Sound familiar? That's right. This guy was pulling a Descartes centuries before Descartes was born. Al-Ghazali wasn't anti-philosophy. He loved logic and even saw value in Greek ethics, which aligned with Islamic principles. His 40-volume masterpiece on ethics and practical reason aimed to help everyday people find spiritual contentment. And no, he didn't burn down the Islamic Golden Age as some claim. In fact, philosophy and science thrived for centuries after him, thanks in part to his critic Ibn Rushd. Al-Ghazali's traditionalism became dominant, reinforcing theological orthodoxy and mysticism. His influence, particularly through Tahafut al-Falasifa, led to a decline in philosophical inquiry in the Islamic world. Some scholars argue this shift contributed to a relative stagnation in scientific and philosophical development compared to the West, with Muslim-majority countries producing less than 10% of global research papers today. However, this view is debated, as it overlooks other historical factors like political and economic challenges. Al-Ghazali's emphasis on faith ensured that Islamic theology remained accessible and robust, influencing later theologians and mystics. His approach prioritized submission to divine will, resonating with the broader Muslim community. Al-Ghazali died in 1111 in his hometown of Tus, leaving us a powerful lesson. Don't just follow the crowd. Whether it's news, influencers, or so-called experts, stop and think for yourself. As he put it, whoever determines truth from people alone will remain lost in bewilderment. Know the truth, and you'll find its people. Now let's get to know another legendary philosopher, Ibn Rushd, or otherwise known as Averroes in the West. Welcome to the heart of Rome, the apostolic palace in the Vatican, where faith and art collide. Here, in the early 16th century, the legendary Renaissance artist Raphael puts the final strokes on a masterpiece that defines an era, the School of Athens. This iconic fresco isn't just a work of art, it's a window into history. At its center, we see Plato and Aristotle, deep in discussion. Nearby, Socrates debates while Euclid measures geometric shapes in the foreground. But look closer. There's something unexpected. Peering over Pythagoras' shoulder is a figure with bronze skin wearing a turban. This is no ordinary man. This is Ibn Rushd, known in the West as Averroes, the Andalusian scholar who helped spark the Renaissance and earned the title Guardian of the Philosophers. Ibn Rushd was born in 1126 CE. He was a Muslim philosopher, physician, and jurist from Cordoba, Spain. He was known as the commentator in the West for his extensive commentaries on Aristotle. He sought to reconcile Greek philosophy with Islamic thought. His works covered jurisprudence, medicine, and philosophy, earning him a reputation as one of the greatest thinkers of the medieval period. Ibn Rushd came from a long line of Maliki jurists. This was a time of shifting powers, with the Almoravids giving way to the Almohads. Amid this dynamic backdrop, Ibn Rushd rose as a judge, court physician, and philosopher, engaging with rulers who valued his intellect. One story tells of Ibn Rushd meeting Caliph Abu Yusuf. When asked about the universe's eternity, a tricky topic, Ibn Rushd stayed silent at first, sensing the sensitivity. But as the Caliph dove into a lively debate with another scholar, Ibn Rushd joined in, impressing the ruler so much that he was showered with gifts. Ibn Rushd wasn't just a thinker, he was a prolific writer. His legal works are still studied in universities today, but his true legacy lies in philosophy. He believed philosophy was a divine duty, rooted in the Quran's call for rational thought. For Ibn Rushd, philosophy was pure logic, accessible only to those with the right education. Ibn Rushd divided society into three groups. First, philosophers, who used demonstrative reasoning to uncover reality's truths. Then, theologians, who rely on dialectical arguments. And finally, the masses, who understand the world through the Quran's symbols and metaphors. Only philosophers, he argued, could interpret ambiguous scriptures to reveal deeper truths. But Ibn Rushd faced a challenge. The theologian Al-Ghazali had attacked philosophy in his Incoherence of the Philosophers, accusing thinkers like Avicenna of heresy. Ibn Rushd fired back with the Incoherence of the Incoherence, defending ancient philosophers and their ideas. Al-Ghazali criticized three ideas: the universe's eternity, God's omniscience, and bodily resurrection. Ibn Rushd argued Al-Ghazali misunderstood these concepts. A pre-eternal universe could still depend on God. God's knowledge isn't like ours, it is reality. And on resurrection, Ibn Rushd saw room for both bodily and spiritual interpretations, depending on one's intellectual level. Ibn Rushd believed that faith and reason are not in conflict, but are complementary paths to truth. In his seminal work, The Decisive Treatise, he wrote, "Since the law is true, we, the Muslim community, know firmly that demonstrative reasoning does not lead to disagreement with what the law sets down. For truth does not oppose truth, but rather agrees with and bears witness to it. He argued that philosophy, particularly Aristotelian logic and metaphysics, could deepen understanding of religious texts like the Quran. In Tahafut al-Tahafut, The Incoherence of the Incoherence, 1150 CE, Ibn Rushd responded directly to Al-Ghazali's criticisms of philosophers. Structured as a dialogue, he quoted Al-Ghazali's arguments and systematically refuted them, defending the use of reason in interpreting religious doctrines. He saw reason as a divine gift, essential for uncovering the universal truths in the Quran, and criticized theological approaches like Asharism for relying on what he called sophistical arguments. Ibn Rushd also reinterpreted concepts like prophecy, emphasizing the Quran's universal teachings over miracles, which he viewed as rhetorical tools rather than literal proofs. His approach aligned with the Mu'tazila tradition of rational inquiry, advocating that knowledge and expertise empower religious understanding. While Ibn Rushd's ideas didn't fully take root in the Muslim world, they spread like wildfire in Europe. His love for rational thought inspired a new class of thinkers, laying the groundwork for the Renaissance. As he once said, God created man with intellect to create the world anew every day. Ibn Rushd's legacy lives on, not just in Raphael's fresco, but in the enduring power of reason. He was the bridge between ancient wisdom and the modern world. A true guardian of philosophy.
If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.